Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Lock podcast. I'm your host, Ben Mostaller. We have made it to week 5 in the NFL. And of course, we have predictions, bets, daily fantasy, and fantasy start sit for you in this episode. Later on in the podcast, we are also going to welcome over Charlotte Haggerty, better known as Daddy Mahomes, and Jaguars Walter Picks over on TikTok to do a prediction battle with me and see how we do. But before we move on to that, we got to look back on week 4 and see how we did. Now, it wasn't a terrible week. Our predictions were 10-6. The spread was 11-5, over under at 9-7, and the locks were 2-2. Miami was unable to cover the 4 points at Cincinnati, as well as the Buffalo Bills and Baltimore Ravens did not score as much as I thought they would. But we did lock in Minnesota -2.5, as well as Philadelphia -6.5 at home against the Jaguars. So those were the two locks that we got. The other two not good. We're still looking for a perfect lock, and we're hoping to do it in week 5 as we look ahead. But let's look at the daily fantasy results. So I told you guys to go get Geno Smith, very cheap. He was somewhere around 50 to 5,300 last week on DraftKings, and it paid off because he finished as the number 2 fantasy quarterback in week 4, 320 yards and 3 total touchdowns against the Lions. We found out how poor their defense truly is. That made us be able to go ahead and pay up for Christian McCaffrey. Thought that he would have his best week in week 4 against the Cardinals, and he did so far. 9 receptions, 81 yards on a touchdown, only 27 rushing yards, but those receptions really help out, and I think they're going to utilize him more from here on out. Also went and got the number 1 running back in fantasy and Nick Chubb as well. He has been Mr. Reliable all season. Another 100-yard game, 118 yards and a touchdown for him last week. 20.7 fantasy points, 11th best running back in week 4. The wide receivers, I'm going to admit, were absolutely garbage picks last week. And if we would have continued on a good pace how we started with the quarterbacks and the running backs, we probably would have won a lot of DraftKings money there. But unfortunately, we didn't. Amari Cooper, a guy that I thought would just explode after 2 amazing back-to-back weeks with over 100 yards receiving, only catches 1 pass for 9 yards. Devonta Smith coming off a career week the week prior, only catching 3 passes for 17 yards. Greg Dortch, we thought we could utilize him really cheap, but he only produced 1 catch for 6 yards. Romeo Doubs, he was the only good wide receiver that we could get. 5 receptions, 47 yards, and a touchdown. We also selected David Njoku, who didn't do terrible, 9.7 fantasy points at the tight end spot for the price. And the defense was atrocious. Only 1 fantasy point. I thought that they would be able to play Patrick Mahomes a little bit better than they did. Thought it would be a little bit higher scoring, but that was absolutely ridiculous for the Buccaneers defense. Overall, we get a total of 110.8, which hasn't been our worst yet, but not our best. So again, a good start last week, but it got rough when we got to the wide receivers, tight ends, and defense. So how did the start sit go? Well, you couldn't got any better than starting Jared Goff. He is a guy that I streamed last week against the very poor Seattle Seahawks defense, and he really paid off. 4 touchdowns, 378 yards, and an interception. One of his best weeks, probably of his career. If he is still available on waivers, he's a guy that I suggest picking up. I told you to sit Trevor Lawrence, and that was very smart. He was coming off a huge week the week prior, but 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and only 174 passing yards in week 4 made him the 31st best quarterback. So pretty much the worst quarterback starting in week 4. I told you to start Khalil Herbert after a really big week in week 3. Week 4, he comes back, only 11.1 fantasy points, 77 rushing yards for him. So it could have been better, but 11.1, whatever. By the time we made the podcast, we didn't know that Alvin Kamara would be injured, not playing. 0 fantasy points for him, of course. So you should have sat him unless you woke up late Sunday morning. The start, we talked about Amari Cooper, how embarrassing of a week that was, 1.9 fantasy points, which was terrible. But the sit of Rashad Bateman was not much better, 4.7 fantasy points, 69th amongst wide receivers. So that was a smart sit there. Told you to start David Njoku, 9.7. Again, not terrible. TJ Hawkinson would have been the best start of last week. But I told you to sit Irv Smith Jr. and only 5.3 fantasy points, and ranked 33rd amongst tight ends. All right, guys. So I want to welcome Charlotte Haggerty to the podcast. Charlotte, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be able to talk fantasy football with somebody else besides myself. So that's always a good thing, right? So coming over from TikTok, you got two accounts. What got you started into like fantasy football in the first place, and then making it on TikTok?
So, I started really getting into football when I was 12, and that's when my father was a Jets fan, and so I started watching the Jets, and that was the year of Fitzmagic, and so we went 10-6, but missed the playoffs. And I remember when we lost that game to the Buffalo Bills, I cried.
Oh no.
And it was at that moment that I knew that I genuinely loved football, like in my heart. And then I think a few years later, I got into fantasy football because I saw an ad for it, NFL Fantasy. So I started doing it, and it was a standard league at the time, no PPR. So, and I was really, really into it. I created my own league and I won the championship. So it was really fun. And then I did that more and more. And then I did an ESPN league and, whatever, with some of my old high school friends. So, in terms of TikTok, I really wanted to start a TikTok account. I go to Berkeley College of Music, and so my ultimate goal is to work in the music industry. And so, clout in general and having a platform is so extremely important. And I try to do different things, but I was like, I can't do this. There's too many of my friends are watching. So, this sounds crazy, but I was like, I'm gonna make a football account. So I created one. I blocked about 100 of my friends, so none of them would see it, and I wouldn't feel any pressure. And then I started doing meme stuff, like just posting memes. Realized that wasn't gonna work. Started showing my face. Tried out a lot of different content. It was like a long, slow process at first, but slowly I started building. And when I was at about 6K followers, Sam actually DM'd me on Instagram and he wanted to know if I was interested in interviewing for Walter Picks. And so I did the interview. I was still unsure because I was like, I wanted to start a music TikTok account, and running two TikTok accounts already was a lot of work. But I decided to accept, and at first it was tough making content. Didn't have the same success. I was trying to figure out what would work fantasy football wise, and then I made a trade that forever changed the trajectory of my time with Walter Picks, which was I was 0-8, worst in the league, traded away Dalvin Cook for Josh Jacobs, Tyler Conklin, and Jacoby Brissett, which for a 10-man, 12-man league was god awful. But in a 32 league, when I had no other good players, it was great. And I had so much fun making content last year because after that trade, I went 17-3. I went on this insane run, and it was just incredible. And so, yeah, that's how I got started. Now we're running it back again. I had another situation recently that has unfortunately poorly affected the narrative around my account. So with a lot of hate comments, but again, that's a huge content booster. So yeah, I'm just on the grind, trying to make the best content I can, trying to be incredibly consistent, dedicated, and really try to interact with my followers.
Yeah, so Walter Picks. Tell me a little bit like more about what Walter Picks is, and obviously they reached out to you, and everybody's dedicated a team on TikTok. Um, so you're a Jets fan, but your Jaguars on there. How did that go?
So I wasn't actually I didn't even know that the company existed. I had no idea what it was. I wasn't one of their initial creators, but the Jags creator that they hired wasn't doing well. He was not consistent enough, so they had to let him go. And they saw me on TikTok and they reached out to me. And at the time, there were two open teams. It was the Jaguars or the Chargers, and I just chose the Jaguars. And I'm so glad that I did because everybody says I look like Trevor Lawrence. I get comments like that all the time, like, Trevor, stop making TikToks, get on the field. Um,
You could probably do better than him.
oh yeah. I can throw a mean spiral, but so yeah, so people are confused by that, but actually half, if not more than half of the creators aren't actually fans of their teams.
Hmm.
So it's just the way that it is, the way that things were assigned. And I was assigned the Jaguars account. The Jets account did open up this past year, but I feel like I had too much of a reputation to just leave everything behind and jump to a new account. So I wanted to stick with it. But yeah, Walter Picks essentially, it's a fantasy football app. It's really great, 17% more accurate than Yahoo and ESPN. They have start sit, trade analyzer, they have DFS, they have basketball now. They did a March Madness special as well. We just have a new O-line tool that was released. You can track the 32 creator fantasy league on there as well. So lots of stuff, making updates every day. It is free, and there are some services that we offer through a subscription. So it's a really great app, and we have grown massively in the past 2 years. Like really, really just incredible. We jumped to number 6 on the App Store in sports apps at one point, you know, among companies like ESPN and Yahoo, like these massive, massive corporations, just with some TikTok. So it's a really great accomplishment, and I'm really proud to be working for a company like this and being part of a team of creators where we support one another and we play fantasy football together. And it's just a really great community and environment.
Yeah, I've checked out some other people's videos too, and it's good content. Like it's really good, it's really cool. And obviously, since I post fantasy football stuff and like study it every day, of course on TikTok that stuff's gonna come up. So it kind of led me to your channel and seeing everybody else on Walter Pick. So that's pretty cool. So definitely check that out. Before we get to our predictions, like what's it like 2.2 million or something like that likes over on TikTok? Like when did you just look and say, wow, like maybe I'm going somewhere with this?
Do you mean on the Walter Picks account or the other account?
Like which one kind of just blew up? Like did they both blow up? Was it because of Walter Picks that your personal account blew up or
So obviously I have more accounts. I have more followers on my personal account, about like 13K more. And that, obviously I started that a lot earlier. A lot of people know that the accounts are connected, especially now. I think that the Daddy Mahomes has just been a grind. It has been a grind day in, day out, taking followers where we can get them, replying to comments, engaging. I've had some massive videos blow up that have got me, thousands of followers in days, but besides those few moments, it's been so incremental and so just consistency, small wins, 100 followers here, 50 followers there. Um, so there's not really a big moment for that one. I will say for the Jaguars Walter Picks, I think the craziest thing was when I was getting way back when all the Dalvin Cook stuff was happening, and I was really into the fantasy, and I was on my way to a grand comeback. I was getting at minimum 20,000 views per video. That was the minimum that I got, rarely less. And I didn't even have 10K followers from the majority of that. And I think for me, that was absolutely insane that I was getting so many views off of this stuff. And I know a lot of current creators now that said that they first heard about this whole league, because of my content. And I think for me, that's what really set things apart when I realized, I guess, the clout kind of behind that, even though my follower count doesn't fully match that. But yeah, I would say that was the biggest moment for me. And I feel like it's kind of happening again through this most recent fiasco.
Yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about. Some controversy there. Um, I mean, I don't know if you want to bring it up, but what are your thoughts on it? Like I think it was fair in my opinion, but
Which part was fair?
well, I guess the veto, had that ever happened before?
No, it has not happened before. And I think the reason that it has never happened before is because nobody has ever accepted a trade that the other person didn't want to do. And I
Okay.
think a lot of people are saying, like, why didn't you withdraw? Why didn't you withdraw? And unfortunately, when all this happened, I had no idea the trade was accepted. And I had videos, hundreds of thousands of views that were put up before I even knew this trade went through. So
Hmm.
that the narrative was already started. And the thing is, it's like, we sent out, I tried to explain this. We sent out a total of 8 different trades, right? And we were communicating through text. So she texted me the trade actually. I did not offer it to her. She texted it. I said, let me put it in Sleeper so we can visualize it. I said, I'll send it to you. And I texted her and I was like, how are you feeling? And she was like, da da da. And then the next day, Sunday, I said, so what are your thoughts? And she was like, I don't know. I'm too much of a wuss. And then she countered with a different trade. So in my eyes, a counter is a rejection because when you counter on Sleeper, that's a rejection. It automatically rejects the trade when you counter a trade. And again, I've offered lots of trades, never withdrew any of them because it was never a problem where someone would just accept a trade without telling you. Um, and usually when I send trades, I'll say, let me know before accepting. Like, let's just make sure we're on the same page. So then, 3 days later, she accepted it and I didn't know. Um, and unfortunately, the narrative was already started. So we talked about it on live actually a little bit. That was a time. I still need to FaceTime her, but she's on vacation. So just letting her enjoy that. But for me, it's really frustrating because I went through the Dalvin Cook thing last year and I knew the second that I saw that trade was accepted, you know what my first thought was? TikTok. How on earth am I going to explain this on TikTok? Like, this is going to ruin everything. And last week, when I was really, kind of sad and down about it, and I even felt, a little hurt by Rossi, even though I know that wasn't her intention, they said to me, like, don't worry, this will all blow over and all this stuff. And it's like, no, that is not how it works. Like, you do not understand how narratives work and how hard they are to change. It was so hard for me to change that Dalvin Cook narrative. And now the narrative with these veto jokes and I'm an L creator and I suck at fantasy football and I'm so bad, it is stronger than ever. And it has shown absolutely zero signs of slowing down. And I'm gonna have to put in a lot of work to, kind of build back the reputation, even though I didn't actually do anything. I mean, Sam's the one, right? The commissioner decided to veto the trade. He could have vetoed it, not vetoed it. I didn't like do anything bad in this situation. I didn't, cry about it. People were like, you begged. I texted him. I said, Sam did not put the trade through. I didn't accept that. That's it. And then he made the decision. So I feel like I'm catching a lot of hate from all sides. And it's really fascinating, honestly, and it's incredibly frustrating. But I try to view it from a positive perspective in that my views are up a lot, you know, and I'm just gonna try to run with it.
It can only go up from here, I think, right? You're getting the
Yeah.
views, you bounce back in a big way like you did last year with the Dalvin Cook trade. And hey, Tyler Conklin this year, he's tearing it up for those Jets. He looks
Oh my
pretty
gosh.
good. Yeah, yeah. So, well, hey, why don't we get to the predictions and
Yeah,
see
enough of
what we
that.
can do here, see who has a better week. I've been all right with the predictions, but hopefully we can both have a good week.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Packers for this one. Um, Aaron Rodgers, Packers 3-1. They struggled a little bit against the Patriots. That was kind of sus. Um, but I'm definitely gonna go with the Packers.
I'm going with the Packers at home. You know, they had a very tough game versus the Patriots. They gave them a run for their money. But if you've noticed the last couple of weeks, Rodgers receivers have been able to catch the football, and that was a struggle at the beginning of the year. Romeo Dobbs is really coming up. Alan Lazard, big way. The Giants, although they are what only one loss now, they're still the Giants, right? Daniel Jones might not play. So I'm going to go Green Bay at home, but I do think it's a close game. So I think that the Giants do cover the eight, but I think it'll be over 41 and a half. I think if you're getting 20 plus points from the Patriots and the Packers, you're going to get it from Saquon Barkley and the Packers versus the Packers. So give me the over in that one, but I'm going Green Bay.
For sure. All right. Steelers and Buffalo. I saw you put plus 14 for the Buffalo. That's pretty high, but obviously I'm going to take the Bills in this one. They're moving forward with Kenny Pickett, so you have to expect a lot of up and down from him, especially against, one of the top defenses in the Buffalo Bills. Um, it'll be interesting too to see how the receivers line up against that defense and what they're able to do. But yeah, definitely going the Bills with this one. Not close.
So unfortunately, I'm from near Pittsburgh and I'm a Steelers fan. This year's been rough. It's a new transition. I think we need to fire all our coaches. It's bad. Like I want to switch teams. I don't want to root for them anymore. And a fun fact, if you haven't seen, this is the worst as far as line. The most points that the Steelers have been underdogs by in their history. I think since 71 and 72 they had a game where they were 13 and a half point underdogs. Now they're going into Buffalo. Of course, all my friends are Steelers fans, as well as me. And they're like, oh no, they'll cover. But I think Buffalo just wins big. I think they put up a lot of points. Steelers defense is struggling with injuries, so yeah, Buffalo all the way. And I think it'll be under because I think that like the Bills will put up like 30, but the Steelers will be lucky to get 10. Good Buffalo defense.
Totally agree. All right. Chargers in Cleveland. Even if the Chargers weren't better, I'd still probably take the team going against Cleveland. But the Chargers are better, so I'm gonna go Chargers for this one. Um, Not much else has to be said. Justin Herbert. Um, I think Keenan Allen is coming back next week or coming back this week. I'm not sure. So having him back would be a big help. Obviously, Austin Eckler had a massive game last week too. So hopefully he can continue that momentum and live up to his draft status. But yeah, I'll go charge in this one. What do you think?
Oh, I agree, and I have that as a lock of the week. So Sports Lock Podcast, where I'm at, that's what we're looking at: fantasy, daily fantasy, start sit. But I also lock in the games that I'm confident in, and I'm really confident that the Chargers go on the road and take down the Browns. The Browns losing to Atlanta at home. Atlanta not looking as bad. But if Keenan Allen's back, Austin Eckler finally exploded last week. And I think I need a TikTok of Daddy Herbert. I love Justin Herbert. Herbert is my guy. I had to get his gear. So I'm riding him with the MVP at the beginning of the season. I said that he was going to get it. He's the leader in passing yards so far this year. So I think he lights up the Browns. I think they win by more than the three. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch on Sunday. But so I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. Give me the Chargers.
Absolutely. All right. Next up, we have Chicago and Minnesota. I think Chicago, they're 2-2, surprisingly, even though they're pretty awful. Um, But definitely go with the Vikings in this one. I'm just going to go with the better team, better offensive weapons. I don't think that the Bears can just run all day on the Vikings. So I'll go with the Vikings with this one.
I agree that the Vikings are the better team, and I honestly think they're going to try to run the ball more this week against the Chicago Bears. Trying to get the ground game going. That they got Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen that they can throw to. They can do that at any time, but the running game hasn't been as good. So I think they focus on it this week. They get the job done covering to win by a touchdown against the Bears, who Justin Fields is just he's not god awful, but he's really bad, right? He can't throw the ball. Darnell Mooney, a guy that I was high on at the beginning of the season, doing terrible this year. The only way that they maybe make it close is if David Montgomery comes back and they utilize him this week off the injury. But it's going to be Minnesota all day at home. I think a big day for Dalvin Cook.
Absolutely. Next one we have Lions at New England. I'm totally gonna take the Lions in this one. Um, I can't believe that the Lions are 1-3 considering they're averaging 35 points a game. Patriots are walking in there with Bailey Zapp, whatever his name is. Third string, rookie. I don't know if the Brian Hoyer is able to come back or not, but even so, I mean, the Pats have really just been atrocious, and I say that as a completely unbiased Jets fan. They're really just garbage all around. So I'm going to take the Lions in this one. I think they get back on track and they make a playoff push.
I want to go Lions really bad, but they do have the number one offense, but they also have the worst defense. So Jared Goff able to put up points. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy that I really like, could be coming back this week, as well as DeAndre Swift. So watch out for that. But I think somehow the Patriots find a way to get the job done at home. They're going to ride Damian Harris this week. He's been really consistent, a touchdown in the last 3 games. And they're going to be able to run all over that Lions defense. So again, pretty high scoring, but I'm not sure. I just want to address TJ in the chat. Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, or Wilson Jr. Pick one. I mean, you got to go Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers, right? Even though that AJ Dillon is there, he is still the guy. He's going to get the PPR points over Jamal Williams and Wilson Jr. And he's just the guy, right? He's on a different level than the other two. Plus, if DeAndre Swift comes back, Jamal Williams, his workload will decrease slightly. So definitely go Aaron Jones.
I would say if DeAndre Swift doesn't come back, I'd stick with Jamal Williams. I think the Lions are going to have a field day on the Patriots. So that's what I'd say. And it does have potential to be a low scoring game, though. But I'd say Jamal Williams. But I do agree. AJ Dillon has, dramatically dropped in value in PPR formats because he's just not getting the targets Aaron Jones is. So even though it's still somewhat of a split backfield, Aaron Jones is still the RB1. So I can understand your perspective.
Yeah, and Herbert or Mahomes. If you're asking in general, it's really tough to say. I'm
Daddy.
a Herbert guy. I have to ride Herbert all year, though. I mean, I went out and bought his jersey and stuff. So like, I'm all in on Herbert. I know you're Mahomes, but two guys that are going to be coming down to the wire as far as passing touchdowns at the end of the season, where Mahomes probably has it over of Herbert is probably with his rushing ability. He'll have a couple more rushing touchdowns, but I think they'll be similar. Give the yards to Herbert because he's more of a pocket passer there. But I know you're going to disagree, but I got to go Herbert.
Ultimately, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. They're, the best offense, or at least top 2, top 3. So I think that's simply why I'm going to choose Mahomes over Herbert. Really quick, someone said, bold predictions, Niners will be dangerous the rest of the year. If they can do what they did last year, but not look like garbage in the first half, because they didn't really look like an NFC Championship contender team in the first half of the season last year, the Niners maybe, they potentially could be dangerous. So That'd be really interesting.
And honestly, and I might get flack for this, but I think Garoppolo is a better quarterback than Lance. It sucks that he's injured, of course, and that is their guy that they want to focus on. But Garoppolo has gotten there, he's taken them there, and I think he can do that again. So definitely agree with the Niners being kind of an underdog team to possibly upset the NFC. It's kind of a wild card for me, right? There's not really a team out of the NFC that I can like confidently say that
Yeah.
they're going to go. The
Well,
Eagles, I think, will get to the playoffs, but the question is, will they be able to win in the playoffs?
exactly.
Get to
And I
the
think
very young team, very new team, very talented team. Usually like to go with guys and teams that have some good veterans on them. So of course Tampa Bay's got to be there in the running. Green Bay's got to be in the running. You can't throw out the reigning Super Bowl champs either, the Rams. So it's honestly a toss up. Niners could do it. Eagles could do it. Any team over there, the Minnesota Vikings could do it. Um, so it's a toss up.
no, I totally agree. Like I think in the AFC there's, a few teams that are clearly superior. Bills, Chiefs, obviously top two. Um, the Ravens, Chargers, the Dolphins were, but with the Tua injury, who knows what's gonna happen. Um, but yeah, no, I agree.
And a trade looks like TJ got a trade offer Dalvin Cook and Jalen Hurts for Jonathan Taylor and Tom Brady. I would accept that trade.
I would totally accept
Yeah,
that trade.
yeah.
I think Hurts will be better than Brady going forward. Also,
Mhm.
Brady's injured. Brady is dealing with, some personal life issues. Brady could retirement season. Also Hurts. He does have that running upside, so I would go with that one.
Yeah. And down below, one of the league, your quarterback one is Tua, and Mac Jones is your QB2. That's tough, but guys look on the waiver wire. If of course Jared Goff's still available, pick him up. Geno Smith, he's been putting up good numbers. Uh, but honestly, quarterbacks besides a couple of the top like Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, like the mid pack has been kind of whoever. It's been situational. I've been streaming quarterbacks from my one league, and it worked out for me the last 2 weeks. Obviously, streaming Jared Goff last week and Geno Smith in another league who were the top two quarterbacks.
Mhm.
But it's not bad if you can find somebody like that. And in all honesty, I hate saying this because it's my team, but Kenny Pickett, he's going to bring some life there. George Pickens went off last week for the Steelers. If he's sitting there, there's some weeks that he might be able to get you some points. And we saw last week with 2 rushing touchdowns, he can also use his legs.
That's facts. All right. Why don't we get to the next prediction? Seattle and the Saints. Um, this is a tough one, and I think it depends on if Jameis Winston comes back or not. Obviously, Andy Dalton was not bad in the London game, but they did not get the win. I am not gonna ride the Seahawks high. I don't think that, they're gonna be consistent moving forward. So I do think I'm gonna take the Saints in this one. Um, because I just think the Seahawks are gonna be up and down all year. I'm a Jets fan. I know Geno Smith. I don't think one big game against, a terrible Lions defense means a lot. But I think this is definitely one of the more toss-up games with two kind of very uncertain teams in weird positions with some injuries and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm going Saints as well. I think it's a close game. So right now, the Saints are 5.5 point favorites. So I think Seattle can cover that. They've competed this year against some team. Geno Smith surprising me because the preseason was terrible. And the Seahawks, when Russell Wilson was up there, and I still root for the Seahawks. I got to meet Tyler Lockett this year and DK Metcalf, which was pretty cool. Great guys, great to the fans. So I got a little bit of some loyalty to the Seahawks here and want to pick them. But when you're going down to New Orleans, you don't know what's going to happen. And if it's Jameis, if it's Andy, I still think that they get the job done. But a guy that I was really high on this year coming into it, Chris Olave, starting to tear it up. I've got him in a couple of my leagues. I only spent $2 on him in an auction league, a $200 auction league. Great value. He's in my lineup as a flex. So yeah, the Saints, I think they get the job done this
Absolutely. All right. Last one. Miami at the New York Jets. Obviously, the Jets are winning this game. Coming off a big win against the Steelers at Pittsburgh. They're coming back home. Miami will be without Tua. I'm taking the Jets in this one. Zach Wilson is back, and I do think they're going to continue to have ups and downs this year and some struggles for sure. The O-line is very suspect. We've had 4 injuries to our tackles, but in reality, this is not the same Jets team. The weapons that we have are unlike anything we've had before. Like Garrett Wilson, oh my God, can he move? He is so shifty. Elijah Moore, obviously, Zach Wilson loves him. Corey Davis, 2 touchdowns in 2 games. I mean, some old veteran, and he's coming out of the park. Tyler Conklin has been so big as a safety blanket. Breece Hall, he's really, really, really rising to the top. Had that insane reach for the touchdown to win the game. And then, of course, you can't forget Michael Carter, who, although it seems like is becoming sort of the secondary back, was really good for us last year, is a great pass catcher, and is also very shifty as well. So Sauce Gardner is about to shut down. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, they're going to shut down Hill and Waddle, the same way that he shut down Chase and Deontay Johnson. So that's my take, and I'm fully a biased Jets fan. I don't think anything I said is untrue or false.
I don't think what you said is not true. I just see it. This is a young team, and they're still building. They got a lot of great talent around them. Going into this week, it's very tough for me. I can see the Jets winning, but as a Steeler fan, I know how terrible they are this year, right? I think that the Steelers are going to have a top 5 draft pick going into next year. Now, a lot of people are saying they can still win some games, but coming up, we got the Bills, the Buccaneers, and we have the Dolphins. So Tua could be back for that. I just have no faith in the Steelers. So is the Jets win impressive? I don't know. I'm going to go Miami, but I could see the Jets win. Plus Miami Heat is my second. That's my love, basketball. Miami Heat all the way. That's my number one. So I'll stick with Miami there. Say they get the job done on the road. And hey, you got Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs, Jax. You should win that league. No doubt about it. What back to back first round picks? Those are like the top 2 guys in fantasy right now. So
In
if
my
you don't win, something's wrong.
in my women's career league, I have. You want to hear my roster? I killed it. I have Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny on my bench, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, and then pick your tight end. Could be Goddard, could be Freiermuth, and then I stream defenses. So
you should win that league. I've gotten unlucky.
4-0.
I've gotten unlucky in a couple leagues just facing some tough competition. In the one league, I have Justin Herbert, Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins. Or I'm sorry, I don't have T. Higgins there. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think at my flex, I have Christian Kirk, who's been going off, Mark Andrews, and I'm 1-3. Like, it just sucks. Every opponent that I've faced has just had their best week ever, but like that's a great team too.
I should see if maybe I can sacrifice some depth, try to sell. I haven't done a trade in the league, but I feel like that'd be good. Sacrifice some depth, maybe sell Rashad Penny high to get a better tight end. I really don't see, unless I get like Cooper Kupp, how I need to improve like my wide receivers necessarily. Like I'm pretty happy with AJ Brown and Justin Jefferson, obviously, but maybe just get like a top 5 tight end. Although Muth has been, pretty good. So I'll have to think about that, see if I want to, sacrifice a little depth.
I think we're going to see his numbers go up with Kenny in there too. That is one of his favorite targets. So maybe I wouldn't yet, but some guys that I would look at, Gerald Everett right now is right outside the top 5 of the Chargers. And with Keenan Allen out, he's been a very like good target. I think he's averaged 5, 6 receptions a game for the Chargers. So definitely a good guy that I would maybe look to trade for. And what about Tyler Conklin on your team? I mean, he's
That's
get a
true.
Jet.
Oh my God, Zach Wilson's gonna love Conklin. That's a great idea. I'm gonna
Yep.
totally forget. See, what it really is that I'm so used to being disappointed and heartbroken, so I don't even consider Jets. It's just too difficult for me. Um, but that's a good idea. Conklin has been great.
Yeah.
Um, I think
I picked him up, and people are like, "Who's Tyler Conklin?" Like that. I'm playing fantasy football with him. You'll find out soon. When I beat you this week, you'll see why.
I think I rejected a trade way back when where I gave up someone for him and I regret it. But I also don't blame myself because I had zero faith that the Jets were going to continue to be offensively productive, which is valid because we're not. And also there are a lot of targets, but Conklin, even with CJ Uzoma back, is like the clear wide receiver or clear T1, so maybe I'll make a move for him.
Yeah, he's proven it. I actually was pretty high on Uzuma this year, prior to, of course, his injury. But Conklin is doing a great job, and he's proven that he is going to get first reps. He's going to be the guy even with CJ back. So I would definitely look to trade for him.
Great, absolutely. Did you want to do some DFS stuff?
Yeah. I mean, we can jump to that if you want. Some start sit. Um, so some
You have
guys
a
that
whole
I like,
slideshow.
if anybody does daily fantasy, it's definitely fun to get involved with because no matter how you are at your draft time, you don't like your team or your team sucking in week 1, 2, 3. This gives you an opportunity week in and week out to pick the guys that you think will have big weeks. So a guy that I had to daily fantasy last week was TJ Hawkinson. I made sure to get him with Amon St. Brown out and DJ Chark that the lines were going to go off, right? And he had his best career day. I also had Geno Smith with the matchup against the Lions, knowing that it was going to be high scoring. He had a big day. So it's really fun to do daily fantasy and gives you a chance to kind of win, even if your regular fantasy team's not bad. So normally daily fantasy, I like to pay down for my quarterbacks just because um, I like to boost the money up and where it counts with the running backs and the wide receivers because sometimes there's not much of a difference between quarterbacks point wise, whereas the running backs and wide receivers obviously can be 20, 30 point difference. But I am paying up for my guy Herbert this year. I haven't done it yet, but good value there. I think Herbert goes off. Leonard Fournette, he's got to have a big day. I think he even came out and said he cares about fantasy football and he wants to score. Able to do it at the end of the game last week against the Chiefs in garbage time, but he only had just 3 carries. They only rushed the ball 6 times. So you're going to want to get him involved on the ground against the poor Atlanta Falcons defense. So Leonard Fournette is a guy that I want, and Damian Harris is a guy that you can get for a really cheap price. Again, a guy that's been consistent over the last 3 weeks, scoring a touchdown, getting about 15 touches a game, even with Ramondre Stevenson in the backfield. So those three I really like. What do you think, Charlotte? Those 3 guys you're high on this week?
Let me think. Is there anyone that I'm particularly high on? Hmm, not really. Um, I mean, I could say people that I'm not high on that I think should be like avoided.
Yeah,
Um, I said this earlier, Geno Smith. I don't think we should be chasing the 31-point game. Um, I think Austin Eckler actually is a safe one. Obviously, he's probably not going to put up that big of a game again, but I think he's definitely not a bad person. I'd rather someone invest money in like a guy like Austin Eckler. I mean, Geno Smith is worth a shot too, especially. I mean, I don't know how expensive he's going to be now after that game, but he's worth a shot. But I probably wouldn't. I'm high on um, Jared Goff again. I will go for him. I think Josh Reynolds again. If Amon Ross St. Brown is out, and if DJ Chark is also out, I would go that direction. Um, I would say any Jets players, but honestly, I think there's just too many targets to really say this one's going to have a big game, especially because, for example, even though Garrett Wilson is probably the most talented receiver on that team over Elijah Moore, over Corey Davis, we saw that, they had some better catches, or Zach Wilson really liked them just because of past chemistry. And then I think the same kind of goes with Kenny Pickett. It's hard to judge. He really liked Pickens when he came in, George Pickens. Is that going to affect Deontay Johnson? Should you go after him? I don't know. So I think that's just something to be aware of in terms of when you have new quarterbacks come in, just like we're seeing with Cooper Rush and Noah Brown. Like, who is Noah Brown? But Cooper Rush has that connection with him, and that's why suddenly he's been relevant in fantasy formats.
Yeah, definitely. I like all those. Some wide receivers I'm going with Mike Evans just because he's Mr. Reliable. He probably won't get 2 touchdowns this week, but if he gets 1, that'll be good for you. Christian Kirk's going to have a big bounce back week. He is a guy that I love this week. Trevor Lawrence hated last week. I told you to sit him, and he was like 31st amongst quarterbacks last week. Rough week. He's going to bounce back and find his guy. He only found him twice last week in the loss. So luckily it went for 60-some yards, I believe. So in PPR, 8 points, which he has been doing way better than that. He finds the end zone. He catches at least 6 balls this week. So Christian Kirk is a guy I like. Chris Olave, no matter who the quarterback is, they're going to get him involved down there in New Orleans against the poor Seattle defense. Romeo Doubs and Green Bay, I think, could take over as wide receiver 1, although I still have Lazard there. He's definitely the wide receiver 2. David Njoku is another sleeper like tight end that's been tearing it up this year. A good target in Cleveland there. So I like him, and I like the Cowboys defense for the price against the Rams. Even though it's the Rams, that defense with my guy Micah Parsons from Penn State, I think will tear it up. So if you're looking at this team, I think this is a good way to go if you're doing daily fantasy this week to win some money. But some start sits like Trevor Lawrence, I'm starting this week. So
yes, love that.
Your twin, I'm going with. I think that he tears up that Texans defense, and Christian Kirk is another guy I'm starting because I think he's going to be the beneficiary. But I know it might be weird, but I'm going to sit Kyler Murray. Not a great matchup for him this coming week against the Eagles defense. You think about the last matchups, Trevor Lawrence, Carson Wentz, 2 guys that got off to a hot start, struggled against that Eagles defense. So if there's other options, I would go Kyler Murray. But if Kyler Murray's like your guy, obviously you're going to start him. Talked about Damian Harris already. I'm sitting Josh Jacobs off a career day for him last week. I think he struggles against the Chiefs defense. They've been underrated at stopping the run. Again, only 6 carries given up last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you look at the matchups, they have just been bad to running backs. So I'd sit him, start Christian Kirk. Really couldn't think of a wide receiver, but I would say Adam Thielen had a big day of receptions last week. Again, I think they try to get the running game going more with Dalvin Cook. I could see him having over 20 rushing attempts this coming week, so Adam Thielen won't see the ball as much. They'll just toss it down the field to Justin Jefferson. I'm starting TJ Hawkinson, and a guy that at the beginning of the year on the podcast I said that I'm staying away from is Kyle Pitts, and people thought I was crazy, but now you're seeing why.
You're right, though. Yeah. I definitely like the Christian Kirk too. In fact, you've inspired me. I don't have a Jaguars player, and I'm really looking to package sell high Josh Reynolds. He got 21 points. I'm going to sell him high. Maybe throw in someone else, a depth piece, and try to get a solid wide receiver 1. That's really what I'm looking for. It's going to be very difficult in the 32 creator league because value is insane. But Christian Kirk, He's someone that I could potentially target. Yeah, really just looking to sell high. Probably trying to sell Will Disley high as well for more consistent guy. Even though he's had great numbers, he's gotten few targets. So I'm gonna make some big moves this week. So maybe I'll target Christian Kirk.
Yeah, and what a lot of people might not take into consideration, the Jaguars paid a lot of money for Christian Kirk. Like, you might not think that he's going to be a good guy with Trevor Lawrence, but so far they've had that connection, and they invested in Christian Kirk, who was a very good wide receiver with the Cardinals. So he's going to be a guy throughout the year that's going to get you 5, 6 receptions a game and at least a touchdown every other game there. So Luke Davis down there says, should you do this trade? You get Devontae Adams and St. Brown, but you have to trade away Debo, Kirk, and Harris. I wouldn't do that trade just for the fact that St. Brown's hurt right now. I know he's a reception hog, and so is Adams, but I love Kirk. Debo Samuel is going to be the guy in San Francisco, and Damian Harris has been a really good running back, a quiet running back, but he's getting the job done. He's like, I mean, Nick Chubb's going off, which I called at the beginning of the year as well, but another guy that's just consistent. He's going to get you 15 touches a game and at least a touchdown a game. So I think you're giving away too much for those two players.
I totally agree. I do not think that you should give away. I don't like that trade.
Yeah, keep what you got. You got 3 really good players there, and if Adams or St. Brown goes down, you would be screwed. I do love St. Brown. I made a TikTok to the It's Corn because I loved him so much. Drafting him at his ADP, right? He was coming off the last 6 games of last year as a wide receiver 2. And I knew it would continue. A guy that I was targeting, and a guy I wanted in my auction league at a really good price. I thought I could get him at, but overpaid. I thought he was. I should have gone more because so far he's been doing great with Jared Goff. But yeah, keep what you got. Keep what you got.
All right. Anything else we want to cover?
Unless there's any other questions, I'm cool. I'll just throw it out there. The Beast Benny Cakes is my name on TikTok, my personal account. But this will be up on Sports Lock Podcast on YouTube. I do weekly fantasy football predictions, start sit, daily fantasy predictions, kind of like we did here on the live. So if you're watching, I'd appreciate a follow. I try to put out good content on TikTok, but the podcast I do weekly, and I put some time into it. I always say I do the homework for you guys. So all you have to do is sit back, listen at home, and I think I do give pretty good advice. And some of my TikToks you can look back on and see, like my Amon St. Brown, my Nick Chubb post at the beginning of the year. Definitely guys that I really enjoyed. It's really blown up. Nick Chubb, running back 1. Amon St. Brown was tearing up before the injury. So, yeah, make sure to check it out. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Check it out. All right. Well, this was great.
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank you for having me on, and thank you for coming on to my podcast. And definitely have to collab soon.
I know. We should go live together on TikTok again.
I'm down with that.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna end this live, guys.
All right, guys. So I want to thank Charlotte Haggerty for coming onto the podcast tonight. We had fun over on TikTok, as you could see, and hopefully in the future here we'll be able to collab once again. So make sure to follow her over on TikTok at daddy_Mahomes or jaguars.walterpicks, as well as my TikTok over there is at, of course, Sports Lock Podcast. So we didn't get to some of the rest of the predictions. So I just wanted to go on here quick and let you know who I'm taking, because we have 3 locks over here. One of the locks from the podcast with Charlotte was the Chargers -3 on the road at Cleveland. So let's go through the rest of these predictions before we end the video. Atlanta at Tampa Bay. I like Tampa Bay in this one, coming off a loss to the Chiefs. They're going to bounce back in a big way. Atlanta's defense will allow them to score a lot. They're going to get the ball going on the ground with Leonard Fournette. Only 6 rushes last week from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they're going to get the ground game going against that Atlanta defense. I do think that Atlanta kind of makes it a little bit of a game. They lose by probably a touchdown, so I'd have the +8.5, but give me Tampa Bay at home. I'm also playing under 48 just because I don't think that Atlanta will be able to score too much. Tampa Bay should get about 28, I would say. Tennessee at Washington. I am going to lock in the under of 42.5. Both teams struggle to score points these last few weeks. Washington has only had 18 points combined in their last 2 games. Tennessee not doing much better. So I like the under of 42.5. I would also take Tennessee to win by 3 at Washington. I just think they're getting rolling now. It does hurt that they're going to be without Treylon Burks. But Robert Woods is a good guy there in Tennessee, and I think that they get the job done on the road. Houston at Jacksonville. Give me the Jaguars to bounce back at home versus Houston, -7. I like Trevor Lawrence in a big way this week, along with Christian Kirk to be the beneficiary. I'm going over 44.5 points because I think they're going to put up a good amount of points in that game. San Francisco, -6.5 at Carolina. Watch out for Carolina. I think that they could potentially upset. I have them +6.5 to cover, but I like San Francisco to win that game on the road. I am playing over 39 points because I think that 39 is just really low, and they're probably at least going to each score 20. So that's why I like the over slightly. Dallas at the Los Angeles Rams. I'm taking the Rams -4.5 at home over Dallas. I think the Cooper Rush start to the year ends here with a loss for them. The Rams, the defending Super Bowl champs, get the job done, unlike they could do on Monday Night Football against the 49ers. I'm playing under 43 because Dallas's defense is good. The Rams' defense is pretty good. And I think that the offenses then won't do as good, of course. So I'm playing the under 43. That was almost locked for me, and it's still a bet that I would probably play in that game, but under 43. We're locking in the Eagles again this week. They were able to get the job done for us last week. I like them on the road, -5 at Arizona. I think I'm going to play under 49 just because the Eagles defense is pretty good. I think they both score in the low 20s, putting them under the 49, but Philadelphia -5 is a good bet for me there. I'm locking that in as well as the Ravens -3 at home. The Bengals having a pretty easy schedule. They beat the Dolphins at home, but they were wearing their white jerseys, their special jerseys. They had a special field. Tua got hurt. Everything went their way to win. I think it's going to be a very high scoring game. So I'm playing over 48.5. But the Ravens coming off a tough loss to the Bills, I think they bounce back in a big way and are the better team and the team to win the the AFC North. I'm going Baltimore, locking in at -3. And Las Vegas at Kansas City on Monday night. Give me Kansas City -7 at home. The Raiders did get their first victory last week against the Broncos, but the Chiefs are just too good. So I'm taking them -7. And I'm playing over 51 because I think that both teams will be able to put up points, and the Raiders' defense isn't that good. So once again, I want to thank Charlotte Haggerty for coming on the podcast tonight. It was a fun time, a great time. And if you enjoyed it, make sure you go follow her, Daddy Mahomes, over on TikTok, or jaguars.walterpicks. Follow both. Also, my Sports Lock podcast is now on TikTok, so make sure you go follow it over there. I'll be back next week with week 6 predictions. Let's get some wins. Let's make some money this weekend and enjoy your week.